But before that I start, because my talk will be on contemporary events, the 80th commemoration anniversary of the date of the rescue of the Jews in Bulgaria. But because I have a remark about the archive, because I'm studying different archive since 20 years, and I'm a little bit surprised that the Swiss archive, they are not mentioned in our discussion. And the Swiss archive, I was ambassador to Swiss, and later I did a research in Swiss about the archives concerning Bulgarian, and especially the situation of Bulgarian Jews, and why those archives, they are so important, because during the war, the Switzerland represented the Great Britain and the United States. Why? Because Bulgaria, the Kingdom of Bulgaria, cut the diplomatic relation and declared war to Great Britain and to United States. And in this time, who was a very important time in the fate of the Bulgarian Jews, that's the Switzerland who represented the interest of the Great Britain and of United States, and all, how can I say, all diplomatic demarches to save Jews in those times. My advice is for the institution in Israel, like Yad Vashem on the university, to make a research in this archive, because the story is very coherent story for the fate of the Jews and for the role the different persons, like the king, like the members of the government, and like the church, and etc., etc. So, but today I would talk to you about the 80th anniversary that was 2 months ago of the day of the rescue of the Jews. The 80th anniversary of the dramatic events for the Jews of the Kingdom of Bulgaria in March, April 1943 was somewhat unique. Never was such a contradictory, controversial thesis of this historical period presented and at the same time defended as the official position of the Bulgarian authorities. For the first time, the Bulgarian pro-Nazi state of the 40s was historically rehabilitated together with its entire hierarchy and instrument, king, government, parliament, and army, and were declared institutional rescuers of the Jews. This was done in an official way with the participation and through the personal statements of President Radev, the Prime Minister, and the entire state apparatus. The Bulgarian head of state and the Prime Minister announced King Boris III as the main rescuer of Jews and took part in a special solemn ritual, laying flowers on the controversial and denied by the State of Israel commemorative plaque of the Bulgarian king. High state orders were awarded to activists who had particularly distinguished themselves with the official version of the general and mass rescue of the Bulgarian Jews. From Israel, the main speaker was Mikhail Bar-Zohar. He is known for his promotional campaign in support of the positive role of the monarchy and of King Boris personally for the rescue of the Jews of Bulgaria. I must emphasize that the Bulgarian Jewish community and the Shalom organization, the main organization in Bulgaria, The leader representing Uniting the Jews of Bulgaria openly expressed in various forums their disagreement with the government's thesis and did not participate in the commemoration organized under the patronage of the President Radev. Memorial exhibition dedicated to King Boris III at the National Library, ceremonial lake of flowers, and the King's memorial plaque by the head of state. Instead, the organization had its own program to honor the true rescuers of the Bulgarian Jews, Dimitar Peshev, representatives of the Bulgarian Orthodox Church, intellectual and trade union leaders, in addition to commemorating the 11,000 Jews of the territories occupied by Bulgaria who lost their lives in Treblinka. Those events were widely supported and promoted among the democratic Bulgarian public and elicited letters and declarations of solidarity by prominent intellectuals and researchers, some of whom joined the unique visit to Kavala, Greece, like Ruben Avramov, organized by Shalom in commemoration of the 1,500 Greek Jews deported therefrom in March 1943. Disagreement with the historical revisionism of the commemoration was also expressed by several international Jewish organizations, including the World Jewish Congress, the Anti-Defamation League, the American Jewish Committee, and others, as well as some Jewish communities from Europe, which wrote special letters of protest to the president. They explicitly emphasized respect and recognition for the actual rescuers, but rejected the thesis of the innocence of the Bulgarian state in the person of the king, the government, and army, for the deportation and murder of 11 Jews of the territories occupied by Bulgaria. I must emphasize that the preparation for this ideological upheaval was carefully crafted over the past 5 years. With the support of the state institution, several revisionist books were published and immediately translated and circulated in English. I will quote from 2 of them. The first one was about the role of the Bulgarian army as rescuer of the Jews, promoting the thesis that the labor camps for Jews in the period 41-44 were in fact the state strategy to hide the Jews from the Germans and save them from deportation. The second one advocated the thesis that the state administration issued transit visas for Jews of Central Europe for a similar purpose, thanks to which thousands, with the figure of the official discourse ranging between 14 and 30,000, were saved and emigrated to Palestine. The first book was also circulated and presented in Israel, where it was subject to sharp criticism. I remember the article of your article about this in Israeli press, and the second one was officially presented in an event organized in the European Parliament in Strasbourg by Bulgarian parliamentarians. An obvious weakness of the second book, the fabricated thesis of rescue through visas, was that it did not consider all the available archival documentation, which showed that the vast majority of the issued visa in question were cancelled by the Bulgarian administration and practically not used. I spoke in the beginning about this, and the proofs about that, so they are in the Swiss archives that I mentioned. During the commemoration of the rescue, two more new theses were presented. The first was that the forceful relocation of the Jews of Bulgaria to small towns in May 1943 and later was also the personal strategy of the king and the government to hide the Jews from Germans. But that is not possible because in this time in Bulgaria they weren't any Germans. With this, the circle of the revisionist falsehood was completed. In this regard, I would like to make a brief overview of how the topic of the commemoration of the rescue of the Jews has developed and the place of the revisionist thesis in it. The first such commemoration was organized in 2003, marking the 60th anniversary of the event in March 1993. The then Prime Minister, after winning the election, was the son of the King Boris III, Simeon Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. He did not hide his great intolerance for the subject of his father's responsibility for signing the law for the protection of the nation, as well as for the deportation of 11,000 Jews from the territories occupied by the Kingdom of Bulgaria. Moreover, two arbitrarily placed memorial plaques of King Boris and Queen Giovanna were removed in Israel in 2002, which again raised the debate about the king's responsibility. The 60th anniversary was a relatively modest commemorations initiated by the Jewish organization, which included laying of flowers on the monument of Dimitar Peshev in Kustendil, and the official representation included the chief of the Memorial Initiative Committee, Ginu Ganev, and former President of the Parliament, and the participation of Georgi Petkanov, Minister of Interior in the government of Simeon Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. The Jewish communities in Plovdiv, Burgas, Varna, and Sofia took part with their own local initiatives. And Shalom's initiative, a commemorative silver coin with the image of Dimitar Peshev, was issued. The highest state present in this commemoration was that of Vice President Angel Marin, who took a modest part in the rescue commemoration events in Plovdiv. Neither the President nor the Prime Minister participated. However, an important consequence of the commemoration of the 60th anniversary was that it provoked an historical debate and research on this sensitive subject in Bulgarian history. In 2002, the small publishing house Galiko published a book of great importance by Albena Taneva of Sofia University, Ivanka Gizenko, so mentioned here, of the Archive State Agency, in which important papers of the meetings of the Bulgarian Orthodox Church's Holy Synod and the Jewish question were published. This new documentation not only revealed the role of the Synod in the protection of the Jews, but also showed some unknown side and action of the Bulgarian King Boris III, as well his anti-Semitic statement and action. The decade leading up to the 70th anniversary was marked by further progress in research, including by foreign researchers interested in the subject. Thus, in 2007, the Marin Drinov University Publishing House in Sofia published the 500 pages work of two Ukrainian-American professors, Larissa Dubova and Georgy Chernavsky, who summarized the knowledge, facts, and circumstances known up to then about the persecution of the Jews in Bulgaria. During this period, many separate publications appeared, including in the popular press, in the Jewish newspaper, etc. In this period appeared also the research of Nikolai Petrov and Varban Todorov about Chamber 7 of the People's Court. Also, I think the research of Stephen Sage on the same subject. I wrote also a book and the very important book by Rumen Avramov and Nadia Danova, documents on the deportation of Jews from Macedonia, Thrace, and Pirot. The 70th anniversary was already elevated to the status of an official commemoration. For the first time, the Prime Minister, Boyko Borisov, take a part with a statement, but his head of OSIF, Rumiana Bachvarova, his actual ambassador to Israel. And she said the government condemns the anti-Semitic policy of its predecessor and every manifestation of violence against human rights and freedom that occurred 70 years ago. As can be seen, the circle of the saviors in this time liked both King Boris and pro-Nazi government. But for the first time, as part of the 70th anniversary, the Bulgarian parliament adopted an official declaration and it paid tribute to the 43 deputies who signed Dimitar Peshev letter, referring to the pro-Nazi policy, and for the first time mentioned the name of King Boris. The text read, "We deeply grieve for every single deported Jews of the territories occupied by Hitler, with which the Bulgarian parliament de facto excluded the deported 11,000 since they were in the territories occupied by Bulgaria." The declaration provoked a sharp protest letter to the Bulgarian parliament on behalf of the Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, signed by Elie Wiesel, Martin Schulz, Rabbi Andrew Baker, Abraham Foxman, and others. It can be said that with the 70th anniversary, the spirit of the revisionism was released till now into the public space. Because of lack of time, I want just to conclude such a drastic change in the position of a respected by the respected historians who changed of mind in this time, that proves that the revisionism took a very important part in the celebrating the commemoration of the 80th anniversary. Such processes are alarming both inside and outside of Bulgaria, and it is high time that the democratic community is informed and becomes